All right. Well, let's do this. All right. One, two, three. Hello, all. Welcome to session 14 of the engagement room. We have a fantastic speaker tonight. We have a TEDx professional with us tonight, all the way from fantastic northern Canada. I think she might have gotten snow today with all the weather that's been going on. No, no, okay. My son lives in Chicago, but I tell you what, I have been so blessed by hearing about Teri Kingston. She's the founder and owner of Real Impact Speaking, and she is a keynote speaker, a TEDx coach, distinguished Toastmaster, a grief-informed storytelling expert who helps leaders and professionals communicate with authenticity, clarity, and human connection. She brings over 20 years of experience helping people transform personal experience into meaningful messages that inspire change. Her speech title tonight, presentation, is What We Carry into the Room: How Life Experience Shapes Leadership, Connection, and Communication. Because in today's workplace and communities, people carry invisible experiences that shape how they lead, communicate, and connect. Caregiving, loss, transition, and profound life changes. Yet these realities rarely have space in personal conversations. Her speech today, her presentation, explains how lived experience influences leadership presence, communication, and workplace culture, and how story awareness can deepen trust, engagement, and human connection. Through reflection and dialogue, everyone here, all our participants here can gain personal insight into leading and communicating with greater compassion and authenticity. Please let's welcome Teri Kingston.
Thank you so much, Tim. This topic, this whole conversation is near and dear to my heart based on personal experiences that I've had in my own life, dealing with death, loss at home and in the workplace. And I appreciate every opportunity, every stage I get that allows me to talk to people, to encourage them to talk to people so that people they work with, they live with, can feel more comfortable talking about grief, loss, death, dying. It is a fact of life, right? Does anybody here listening right now think they're not going to die? Uh, oh, good, Michelle. There's always one. There's always one. We drew a first breath. That much is for sure. And we know that someday, unless there's like major miracles in life expectancy, we will all draw a last breath. My goal in everything I do is to make sure that we're living life as fully as possible with that awareness, that sort of memento mori in the background that I will live a fuller life if I'm aware that I don't have an unlimited number of days. Right. And so somebody asked me once, don't you get tired of talking about death and dying? And isn't it morbid to always want to be talking about grief and loss? And I said, well, actually, no. It's to me, it's not a sad, heavy, or oh my gosh, we're going to talk about this again feeling at all. For me, it's a feeling of hope, of joy, of the fact that I can bring awareness into a workplace of what people you may be working with. And there's many leaders I see here in the Toastmaster community. You're leading teams of volunteers. And each one of those volunteers, when they come into your deck meetings or they come into your club meetings or they come to your contests, each one of those volunteers is carrying something that you may not see because not everybody shows their grief and not everybody wears it visibly on their face or in their clothing. It used to be a lot easier, even back in the Victorian days, when someone had just lost a family member and everybody wore black armbands, right? And you knew that they'd lost someone. And so there's that sort of gentleness in how we approach people when we're aware of loss. But the one aspect of grief that I haven't talked about much and I really want to focus on this year is what's called anticipatory grief. And this is what I'm calling the workplace blind spot, because many people do not understand how to handle employees whose loved ones or family members have been given a difficult diagnosis. And they could be dementia patients, or they could be Alzheimer parents, or they could be any sort of levels of different diagnoses. And somehow in the workplace, it's getting better. It is getting better, but is it getting good enough? That's what I want to know. And that's the question I put to any managers and leaders that are actually here. So Tim said I have 20 minutes and then 40 minutes, but I'm actually going to be interspersing the time we have together with points of reflection that I want you to make. And so it's not just going to be me that's talking, but I'm going to be asking you to write down some thoughts or to think a little bit. And then if you want to pop up on the and speak, that would be wonderful. I do have a PowerPoint, but you know what? The more I think about it, the more I think I don't know that I want to use it. I'm really terrible with PowerPoint. It's not my friend. And so I'm putting this out there that um, what I want us to think about, and this is almost your first point of reflection, okay? In the title of the speech, I talked about what we carry. And aren't you glad you aren't a contest chair and that's the speech title you were giving, having to say that twice in my name and that long, long title? But it wasn't. It's for this specific purpose. But what we carry into the room, whether it's a boardroom, whether it's a deck meeting, whether it's a contest room, what each person individually carries into the room, that changes the room, right? It changes, and sometimes we're not even aware what we're carrying. That's the dangerous part, but other people aren't aware of it either. And we all have what I think of as our brave stories. We don't walk into the room empty-handed. We are carrying our stories with us. And so the first little point of reflection I want you to try is, what are you carrying today that no one else can see? And if you want to keep this private, you do not have to say it out loud. If you want to put something in the chat, you can, but think for a minute about what are you carrying today that maybe someone else can't see. See if I can get this to behave itself here. There we go. So these are some of the things that people do carry. We've talked about, I've already mentioned grief. That is what I talk about. Caregiving. I was a caregiver advocate and I still am, for a number of years, but it started when I was working for the Federal Public Service in Canada. And my second husband, my second chance husband, my golden years man, we'd been married for about 7 years at that time when he was given a very interesting and difficult diagnosis. He had a rare, uncurable disease called pulmonary arterial hypertension. And we were told when we first met with his medical team that the diagnosis for that disease was roughly 5 years, that there were medicine and protocols that we could use that would help him manage the disease and cope with it, but it would not cure it. So, and that was the hardest thing for us to wrap our heads around, if you can imagine, but also for people in our workplace. I can remember going into work sometimes and saying to one of my friends, I honestly wish he had cancer. Because if he had cancer, people would understand, oh yeah, my husband has this cancer or that cancer, and they'd get it. And they would understand the load that I was already carrying. But because it was incurable, they didn't get that. They thought I was being too dramatic and that I wasn't paying attention to the right medical information. But the reality of it, this is a very aggressive disease that attacks the cells in the arteries, pulmonary arteries from the lungs to the heart. And it's very aggressive. The drugs worked for a while and then they didn't. So they'd add in another layer of drugs. Meanwhile, I'm in a senior program um, manager position with the government and getting more and more responsibility at work. He's getting more and more ill. And I found I just could not carry both. I couldn't carry what the job needed from me, and I couldn't carry what he needed from me. So I did what many people in this kind of role do. When they're dealing with grief they cannot carry by themselves, they put something down. And so, a question for you to think about right now is there something you have had to drop in your lives because you couldn't carry it anymore? Did you leave a job? Did you leave a husband? Did you leave a hobby? Sometimes we just can't keep going even with the hobbies that we want because that weight of grief and caregiving and change and uncertainty and loss and whatnot is simply too much. Is there something? I'll give you one or two minutes to think about that. Everybody have something in their notes that they can go back. I'll have a handout at the end with some more points of reflection that you can take with you. But why this really matters is that our experiences, what we're doing outside of our workplace or our leadership role, it really does shape our behavior. But leadership needs to be human before it's strategic. We need to think about the relationships we have with people in the workplace before we think about policies and procedures. And far too often it's the other way around. And so I'm really trying to work with organizations and communities to help them see the people instead of the policies and see what the human people that are sitting in those desks need in order to carry. Sometimes we can carry both. Some people handle grief differently. When my mother died, I was able to go back into work fairly well. I had a good manager at the time, and the job wasn't that stressful. And she just said, if you need to come into work and that helps you, then come into work. But if you need a day here or there, let me know, and we'll work around that. And that was extremely helpful. The impact of that kind of leadership role for a grieving employee, that made me feel seen. It made me feel still connected in the community. It gave me that sense of trust with her, for sure. Um, but again, what happens all too often is the leaders aren't aware of how much the employee is suffering. Sometimes we go into, and we're told to be professional at work, right? We put on our nice clothes and our makeup and our smile, and we go in no matter what's happening, even if things are shattered inside. And I can tell you that as hard as it was to lose my mom in 2010, and as hard as it was when my dad passed in 2016, when my husband passed 8 months after my father, that was really, really tough. Because when your spouse dies, yes, you're grieving for lost parents and what, but when your spouse, your partner, your coffee companion in the morning, your movie guy in the night, the person you went to thousands of Toastmaster meetings with, when that person dies, you lose a lot. You lose your identity for a long time. It's almost 9 years now, and I'm only just in this last year starting to feel like myself or whoever this self is now. Because so much changes when your spouse is irrevocably gone. It's just an incredible journey. Like I've been fascinated sometimes when I've not been sort of curled up catatonic in the corner of the bedroom or something, but it's an amazing journey to determine who you can be now when all of that hard part of grief has already passed. And so a lot of what I talk to with people in different audiences, Disrupt HR is one of my favorite places right now for getting on with a 5-minute talk and asking their HR people and managers and employees to see if they really do understand what's happening in the workplace around them. Do they have the right data collection? Are they capturing what they need when employees are coming back into work from when they've left? And so there's a lot we can do. And then everybody, as you know, I'm sure you all know this, everybody handles loss differently, everybody handles grief differently. And there are so many things that we struggle with when it comes to just simply walking into someone's cubicle at work and saying, how are you doing today? You know, not are you okay, because you're really not okay for a long, long time, but how are you doing? And how can I help? And what do you need? And are we doing enough? Just little questions, little questions. So I want to hear what you're thinking. Is there anybody that, from anything I've said so far, um, if you're thinking about what can we do, can we notice when one of our colleagues is really, really sad and just maybe take them for a walk, take them for a coffee? Do we listen? Do we lead with curiosity? Do we allow humanity into the picture? These are the things that we can do. Does anybody have a story or a moment that they would love to say something about? I see Laura's hand up.
Thank you so much. Your speech was incredible. It was very moving. It brought so many instances where I wish I had been brave enough to stand up for someone else. Because in those moments when I didn't have anyone, I should have been thinking, how can I be there for someone else? Because I know what it feels like to be so alone. And I feel with Toastmasters, especially, the environment is far from lonely. It's very nurturing. It's very comforting. It has so many benefits to joining a club and many clubs if you have the time and the resources. But one story that sticks out is this idea of community building and where it started for me, what my why is. Seeking to connect internationally, it was stemming from a club I had had the opportunity to observe via Zoom, and it was a younger club and just the members seeking the affirmation that their stories mattered. They're young kids. They're used to being told, be quiet and just sit still. But they had incredible stories of just courage and overcoming. And it led me to seeking to help others find their voice, to
Mm,
share their story. And it starts with being the comfort in the moment. And it truly grows if you're willing to allow that connection to take root and go the distance. And I think with Toastmasters, it does have that chance to really cultivate to something even more beautiful. So thank
thank
you for
you.
sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank you for your answer. That's lovely. Before we go on to, I think Sheila, your hand was up, right? Sheila Lachance. I have two Sheilas in here. Isn't that wonderful? And we're not even in Australia. Sorry. I dropped the reflection worksheet into the chat. So if you want to get that, then that's something you can take away to continue with questions as you're going. Sheila Lachance. La Chance?
Yes.
Do I say it in
Yes.
French or in
However you want to say it. It's an ex-husband name, so go for it. I just like the name of it, sound of it, so I kept it. But my late husband, who died in 2019, was a wonderful writer. He was just a wonderful writer. So I decided to make his living, his life, a legacy by two books. One is on speaking because he was a masterful Toastmaster and a professional presenter in the work world as well, and a terrific teacher. Now, Musings of a Madman I Married was more about his memoirs, if you will, short stories with quips about Toastmasters and various things in his life that he experienced. He was a history buff, he was an articulate man, and he also had a great sense of humor. So there's a lot of humor in these short stories that I self-published after he passed away. So what I say to people that have experience with people that pass away, I tell them my story, number one, instead of asking them too many questions. If you share more of yourself, it leads to the other person sharing 9 times out of 10. So that's what I do. I share how I dealt with my grief, and that is by making my ex-husband, or late husband rather, a legacy with his writing and self-publishing 2 of his books. Works for
lovely?
me, so something like that might work for someone suffering from grief.
Mm, excellent. One of my favorite authors that I've actually come across recently is a wonderful author called Geraldine Brooks. And she wrote, both she and her late husband were Pulitzer Prize winning novelists and journalists. And she wrote a book called Horse, which is fascinating. But when she was on the book tour for that, no, when her husband was on a book tour for his book, he dropped dead. And so she finished off her book tour and then she wrote, and it's probably one of the most beautiful books I have ever read around grieving and loss of a spouse. And it's called Memorial Days. And so and she goes through a lot in this book about the exploration of what it's like and what you go through as you're dealing with the loss of a spouse. So it's just a beautiful book to read. Sandra Savage, I see your hand up. You're on mute, my love.
Didn't hear my croaky voice.
I can.
I'm dealing not only with the anticipation of a few family members, very close family members passing, but I'm dealing not only with that grief and the dread, but also guilt.
Hmm.
Any advice?
Oh, I don't give advice because I'm not a therapist and I'm not a minister and I'm not a grief counselor. I share stories from how I saw it in my life, but I would never feel like I could say, it's the word advice. I can listen. I can be empathic with what you're going through. Guilt is a big thing in that stage of anticipatory grief because there does become a stage, and I know I felt this with Harry, that I wanted him gone because he was suffering so much in the last couple of months with the multiple hospital visits. And he went from this big, strong, hunting, fishing man into this skin and bones almost. And it was just a real struggle for him. He was very, very proud. And so there were times I'd spend all day in the hospital with him, and then I'd get in my little car. And once, the evening routine took over, and I would go home and I'd sit on my deck with the river in front of me and drink too much red wine. But it was just, I felt so guilty at one point and thinking, just be gone. Like I wanted him to be at peace. I wanted him to be out of pain. And that's literally the rock in a hard place, right? And you might love them and you might You might not want to be facing life alone, like the whole thought of what will life be like the day after he's gone. And then from, there looking forward 9 years, that's really, really challenging. But guilt and yeah. So even in my TEDx talk, when I talked about can we live better by talking about dying, in the end of it, I'm saying one of the things we did, and so advice maybe, is get different people around the kitchen table with us. The whole talk is set around a kitchen table in some ways because that's where that's where I mixed his meds in the morning, but that's where we had the nurses come in or our Toastmaster friends that came to plan his funeral before he was gone. It was all around the kitchen table. And as his disease progressed and his symptoms were getting worse, we brought different experts in around that kitchen table and we expanded the circle of support. We had a very strong faith community at the time, and my our Toastmaster friends were incredible, incredible. So that's the thing is find the people you feel safe talking to that aren't gonna tell you what to do or try to fix you. If you're sad, the worst thing, I had one friend, I had to tell her finally, she would say, "Oh, well, I'm sure it's going to be better, or you've got your kids coming and you can look forward to that." And she was always trying to jolly me up. She's very British, but she was always trying to, "You've got this and this." And I finally had to say, "Will you stop?" Because when you say that to me, I feel like you're not hearing where I am right now. We're grief phobic as a society. We're emotion phobic, although you wouldn't believe it if you read some social media comments these days, but in general, we don't want to deal with other people. Keep your grief to yourself, leave your grief at home, come to work, sit at your desk, do your job, but don't let me see your tears. I literally had one director come into my office once and say, "Can you stop coming to work so sad? You're bringing the rest of the team down." And Harry was going in for an operation in 2 days. And my son had just been diagnosed with a tumor behind his eye that meant he needed a craniotomy, if you can believe it. And my daughter had just come back from Malaysia with some sort of weird tropical disease. But, oh yeah, sure, just show up, be happy, do your job, do your job. I just about flipped. And I remember thinking later, do you want me to go and circle a big red letter around an imaginary date in my agenda? He'll be gone. He'll be dead. I'll come back to work 3 to 5 days of grief and mourning, and then let's get you back in the saddle. This is why we need conversations around grief. This is why we need to talk about what do people need in order to cope, in order to carry what can't be carried. Angela, I'll come back to you, Tim, in just a sec. Angela.
In the work, I have two members of my team right now that are struggling. And in the team environment, it's hard to know where the line is because we want to give all the support we can, and yet we're not family. And it's a hard thing to do. I have one whose dog died and her sister died the very next day unexpected. And that is and she just couldn't cope.
Mhm.
And so it's like, what do you need? Whatever you need. If you need space, you need whatever you need, we're happy to. She said, I can't step in this world right now. I need to step out of the world right now.
Mhm.
Excellent. You step out of the world, you do what you need to do. We'll fill in, and that's okay. But you don't want them to think we don't want you here, because we certainly do, but we also don't want you to feel like it's required that you
Yeah.
carry the load, because it's not required you carry the load. And it's hard to find that line on the team.
Very.
I have
It
a
is.
second team member whose grandchild is in a NICU unit, and it's been a long time, and it's not the child. So it's his grandchild, and It's hard because every day, I don't know if you know enough about children in infants and
Mm,
NICU units, but they have good days, they have bad days.
mhm,
Sometimes it's grow, 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 and it's back, back, back. 4 steps forward, 7 steps
mhm,
back. It's an
mhm.
emotional roller coaster. And it's hard to know every day, every minute, the priorities change and you just got to drop and go. You do what you got to do. But there's that
Oh, you're frozen. Nope, you're frozen, Angela. Is everybody else frozen?
let me know, just
There you go.
dump what you need.
Oh,
You can explain, not explain, cry, scream, do whatever you want to do. It's hard
mhm.
to know. So
And think
help
the
us,
thing,
Teri.
yeah.
Where's the line? How do we know?
The line is like this, you know? It's not straight. It's not anything that you want it to be. And the other thing is they don't know. They don't know either. Like grief brain, it just the whole executive functioning shuts down, especially in new or raw grief or complicated grief when there's more than one thing going on at the same time. So executive functioning, especially in the workplace, is critical. You know, I often thought I should have a t-shirt that says, "Don't let me operate heavy machinery," because there were times when I didn't even think I should be driving my car, let alone trying to drive a policy through a government, um, ADM's office. And so there is no, and you really just have to take it a day at a time for them, because like the little NICU baby, they will have days when they can cope and days when they're just flatlined, and days when they feel they can move forward and days when they just don't even want to get out of bed. And it's learning to accept. I wanted to write a speech or a book called 50 Shades of Grief, but then found out somebody had already done it. So there went that idea. But it's true. There is no one color for grief, and it changes day to
And
day to
it's waves. It's
wave.
waves that come and
Absolutely.
go. And
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I've been able to do is to tell myself, stay as flexible as you can stay as positive as you can stay. But that also means be prepared to catch whatever balls are falling
Yeah.
without without any animosity, without any irritation, without, because that's the last thing anybody needs. But it's like, but it's okay for one person, but you're saying if you have an entire team, it's like, okay, team, you're
Yeah.
all going to be ready to drop all, catch any balls that are coming down, and we don't know how long this is going to be, so this
Yeah.
is the way it's going to be.
So
I don't know if that.
yeah, you hit on a good point there. And it's communication, ongoing open communication. Like meet with the team regularly and figure out what's working, what isn't, and then see who can do what for today. And other people will feel stressed by the environment as well. And yeah. Tim, you've had your hand up for a while. Did you have something? Thank you,
Yeah, I mean
Angela.
it's interesting because I found Toastmasters at a time when I was going through, I had just come off of a really terrible divorce. And then at the same time, within a couple of years, I came up with a cancer diagnosis.
Mm,
And I was active in church, and of all people, not family until a few months into it, actually was seeing how I was doing. But then, and my children too, because I've got all grown children now. My church, no, no anything, which really caused me some trouble at the time because of
mhm.
my faith journey. But my Toastmaster club, oh my gosh. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I stay in the organization, because that's a safe place in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And it's just been absolutely amazing, as I've grown in that, because I couldn't have got through that without their help. I really couldn't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think when we don't get what we want from our faith community, I think that can be one of the hardest things. right?
Yes, I mean, and it
Feels like we're
depends on
always
how
there.
your community is. You know, if you
Mm.
see a really immersive, a very, hands-on type of community where you're looking for everyone and you're the one that's facilitating that, and then it's
Hmm.
not reciprocal. Oh my gosh, that right there can shut your whole faith walk down because you're like, what about me?
Yep. Yep. Okay. So what I'm trying to do right now
You
in my
keep on going like
engagement.
you are because this
Yep.
works, and this
Good.
is deviating from our format a little bit, but this is the way you're doing this is very interactive, and I appreciate this approach. I know everyone is responding to that, and it's very, very good. Oh, by the way, okay, you used to put out the what we carry PowerPoint, so
Mhm.
everyone has an opportunity to do that, but then also you put out the reflection worksheet. Is
Yeah.
everyone able to see that in the chat? Okay, so that's out there. So I've been able to download it. So
Good. You grab those. There's a little resource page at the back on the last slide almost of the PowerPoint that just has some things that I think will be helpful. My website's on the front page. And if you go to the website, you can find copies of my book really easily. But the book isn't about grief. The book is about get yourself on a TEDx stage. So that's the other thing that's the main part of the work that I do. But talking about, getting in front of audiences, getting into workplaces and helping people start these conversations because everybody has the same questions in some ways. Angela, the questions you've asked, I've been asked before. And Sheila, with your own story with the loss of your spouse, then that's really helpful for people when we do come from that story-based experience in our own lives. I'm not talking about grief because I literally have a whole bookshelf of grief books over there. My latest one is When Breath Becomes Air, which is written by a doctor who was dying. And that's really, really an interesting book as well. But so that's what I do. I read, I research. There are some wonderful, especially for the women on the call here, there are some wonderful women's groups on LinkedIn. And some of those are linked in the resources that I put there as well. I came across one because she did an interview with Darren LaCroix and Mark Brown, two of, the big Toastmaster guys that have been around forever. And her name is Jody Lavoie. And she talks a lot about grief in the workplace. And so I've been following her for a couple of years now. And these women are doing really deep and much needed work around grieving and work in the workplace with HR and with helping managers. As I said, it's a rock and a hard place for the managers. You need to get the work done, and we aren't capable of doing it for quite some time. So I've never recovered the salary that I walked away from when Harry was ill. Never. And now that he's, and being single and things are getting more expensive all the time, and it's a tough challenge out there right now. So this is why, having been a Toastmaster for so long, having such deep connections, having family members around the world from Toastmasters is really, really important. I met Angela 2 years ago with a whole bunch of Mainers, and we had a blast in Freeport, Maine at the District 45 conference. And it's true. The people that are there, I don't think I know more than 5 Toastmasters who have not had some sort of, major grief, loss, life transition, loss of job, loss of children, you name it. I mean, it's life, right? We're full of life. Sometimes we're full of but we're full of life,
that's
and
true.
it's just a really good thing. So we're
We're in
getting,
our last 12 minutes of the
yeah.
time because you've really done a fantastic job filling it up. So we Bezad Sajani was someone that came in about midway. Hello, Bezad. Hello, can you hear me? I know you dropped out and
I
came back
can hear
in.
you. I can hear you.
Oh,
Can you hear
good.
me?
Yes, yes.
I apologize for being late. And Sandra actually introduced your program to me.
Oh, wonderful.
Unfortunately, unexpectedly, I had something to get done, and at the time that I connected, I was driving.
Mhm.
But now I'm at home and I can open my camera, and then we can I can at least enjoy
Okay.
the
Well,
last 12 minutes.
did you have any questions or comments for Teri?
Yes, I do have I, I believe that I came late, but I believe that what I understood it was that the main subject was around grief. Am I correct?
Yes.
Coping with the grief. So, uh, what if the grief is the person herself or himself for herself or himself at the late stage of the age? Because I am I have to help my mom at the situation that actually she has a condition that she's healthy, she can do anything, but no one knows that when something may happen. And she was very good until she actually figured out that she has such a condition. So how, how can I help her, or how can she cope with that? I don't, I feel that sometimes talking, because now I understand that you mentioned opening up and conversation is a great help.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I have feeling that in case of my mom, talking about the subject was actually adding more stress to,
It can
I
do.
don't know, I don't know if
Mhm.
she's hiding when she doesn't talk, or
Yeah, it's
I
tough. And some people don't want to. And certain generations, certain cultures, certain older generations, you just did not talk about. If things were bothering you, you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about money. You didn't talk about health. You didn't talk about a lot of life things. And so you can never force anyone to talk.
correct,
And sometimes the best thing, especially in a situation like that, is just keep showing up. Show up to be there for her. Bring groceries, bring special treats that she loves. Bring, if you have children, bring grandchildren, or it's show up. Show up whether it's hard for you or not, because the time is actually precious, right?
correct,
Especially when you can see, and this going back to anticipatory grief, when you can see the end coming, the time that you have with them, it's like every moment is precious, whether there's ever a word said or not. And I'm
correct.
just going to finish with one more, and I'm not saying this to make people sad, but when Harry was in palliative care, the last couple of days he was in hospice, and I was in there with him the day that he was just really fading, and I was just sitting at his feet because for some reason that's where it felt most comfortable for me. So I was sitting, I was holding his feet, and but I was talking to him in my mind the whole time. And mostly I was just saying, you can leave, you could, it's okay. It's safe. You can go home. And the nurse or the personal support worker came in at one point and she said, you can talk to him, he can still hear you. I said, oh, I'm talking to him. Don't you worry, I'm talking and he's hearing me. And that was all we both needed. And it was simply it was, I can still feel the sunlight coming in the room from the window. I felt like I was wrapped in a blanket, and there was just so much light and so much love going back between the two of us that it's just
Thank
one
you.
of those moments I will never, ever, ever forget. So just
Um,
show up for yourself, but show up for her. And that's all you can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're in our last 7 minutes, and I know everyone had opportunities to see what you gave us to download. Let's see, who hasn't had a chance to say anything? Michelle, I don't believe you or Sheila or Linda have given anything as far as comment or a question for Teri. Anyone out there?
And there's no pressure. If you're one of those people that just wants to absorb, then
Exactly.
you don't have. Michelle, I see your mute off. Would you like to say something?
Your
This is
message
Linda. I'd
comes.
like to say something.
Oh, okay.
I had lost a son in an automobile accident about 20 years ago. And I found that hooking up with the bereaved parents group was very beneficial to me because they were experiencing the kind of grief that I was experiencing. And I became aware that a lot of things that I was thinking and feeling were normal for my situation. So by interacting with people who had a similar kind of experience and are safe people to interact with, that's what was most beneficial to me.
Yeah, it's really hard to talk to other people about loss or grief when you haven't experienced it yourself. Because you think you know, because you've sat in church or you've read books and whatnot, but to be in a group of people that have the same lived experience, that is hugely helpful. Thank you. Michelle, did you have something you wanted to add?
Your message today is perfectly timed as I went to a funeral yesterday. And this member, it's really my mom's cousin, and my mom's cousin had a good life. She was 81 years old, and it was a sweet, sweet service. And we laughed about the different things that she said and did, and she loved animals and different things. But everything turned as soon as the casket was lowered. And that was a different reality check and a somber experience. And once one started with tears, another caught on, and it rippled through very quickly. And there was a bit of sadness towards the end, but it is interesting to observe how people kind of relate or cope or react, however you're viewing it. But I thank you for your message today, and it's been very nice to hear and think about how we're humans, we're people, and it's okay to be sad or laugh or remember the jokes or whatever we feel, and it's all right. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Sheila, I love the quote you put in there. That's wonderful. It's and it's true. The thing that always gets me at the Oscars is when they do those beautiful memorial things. And this one was particularly moving with the tribute to Rob Reiner and the beautiful movies. And just what we don't realize is the impact we have on other people, especially as Toastmasters. When you're sharing words and wisdom and life stories and hard lessons and joyful lessons and funny stories and humor, we are affecting the people around us by the words we choose and the words we use. And to me, that's a sacred privilege. It was as a Toastmaster and it still is now. And so what I want is as many of us as possible that we're bringing more words of love, of peace, of kindness, and simply if the space to let people be who they are in a way that supports whatever they're grieving or whatever they're feeling, so they feel and feel seen and heard and wrapped up in whatever comfort we can give them. And sometimes we can't give anything, and that's life as well. So thank you so much, Tim, for the opportunity to be in your engagement room. It's been delightful. Sandra, thank you for making the connection. And for those of you who took the time out to be here today, thank you. It's always a gift to be able to stand or sit and share with others. And I really appreciate your stories and your sharing tonight.
Let's give her a lasting round of applause here, or hearts, or however you want to do it. Thank you so much. I
Thank you
appreciate you
all.
so much, Teri, and this has been a real blessing. And I know that whenever this is available in other places, I can only imagine how it's going to be blessing other people. And again, like you said, you know, with Toastmasters, whenever we're actually reaching out to people, we're giving that wisdom, we're sharing those experiences.
Mhm.
You can't ask for more power. Because I mean, then, I mean, if you thought about it, you know, you're already immortal by what you've been doing.
Ah,
So any of us that ever do anything like this at last out there, we have achieved some level of immortality. And I think that's really, really good. As long as we stay humble, as long as we stay humble. Well, all right, then. Well, we're in our last minute. I want to say again, so thank you, Laura, Sheila, Linda, Angela, Sheila, Teri, especially, Bizad, and Michelle. Thank you so much for being with us. Our next session is going to be in the lovely month of April, which is coming up faster than I really would like. And that will be on April the 8th. And we're going to have a little different session this time because Donna Lewis, who's the Toastmaster from District 39, says she's going to be utilizing her engaging humor path. So there's no telling. There is no telling what's coming up on that. But at this time, it is 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you again for you Eastern Atlantic Time Zone people for being here. God bless you. It's been great to meet you. And please, 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 let's stay in touch. Come back and see us again, and let's just keep this friendship going. So again, Teri, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Good night.
All right, we're going to shut her down and look out for everything that may be coming out on YouTube, Spotify, et cetera, and so forth.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you,
Terrific.
bye, Doc.
Thank
We'll see you.
you.